Welcome to Creepy, the best horror storyteller on YouTube.
Alex and Olivia were a young couple who had recently gotten married. They were both excited to start their new life together, and they had just moved into their first home. It was a charming old house with a wraparound porch and a large backyard. The house was perfect for them, and they couldn't wait to start making memories there. One day, Alex and Olivia were exploring the basement of their new home. They had discovered a hidden door behind a pile of boxes. The door was old and weathered, and it had no handle or lock. Alex and Olivia were curious about what might be behind the door, but they couldn't figure out how to open it. They tried pushing and pulling the door, but it wouldn't budge. They tried using a crowbar to pry it open, but it was no use. The door was sealed shut. Alex and Olivia were disappointed, but they couldn't shake their curiosity. They started to research the history of the house, hoping to find some clues about the mysterious door. They discovered that the house had been built over 100 years ago by a wealthy and eccentric man named Mr. Blackwood. Mr. Blackwood was known to be interested in the occult and the paranormal. There were rumors that he had used the basement of the house to conduct strange and dangerous experiments. Alex and Olivia became convinced that the door in the basement led to another dimension or realm. They started to dream about the things that they might find behind the door. They imagined ancient ruins, strange creatures, and lost treasures. The more Alex and Olivia thought about the door, the more obsessed they became with it. They started to neglect their work and their friends. They spent all their time trying to figure out how to open the door. They tried everything they could think of. They used spells and rituals. They chanted and prayed. They even tried to use explosives. But nothing worked. The door remained sealed shut. Alex and Olivia's obsession with the door began to take a toll on their relationship. They started to argue and fight with each other more and more. They were both exhausted and stressed. One night, Alex and Olivia had a huge fight. Olivia stormed out of the house and went to stay with her friend. Alex was left alone in the house with the door. He sat down in front of the door and stared at it for hours. He thought about all the things that he had tried to do to open it. He thought about all the time and energy that he had wasted on it. And then he thought about Olivia. He realized that he was losing everything that was important to him because of this door. Alex stood up and walked away from the door. He decided that he was done with it. He was done with the obsession. He was done with the fear. He went upstairs and went to bed. He slept soundly for the first time in weeks. The next morning, Alex woke up feeling refreshed and determined. He knew that he had made the right decision. He was going to move on with his life and leave the door behind. But as he got out of bed, he heard a noise. It was a faint sound, but it was definitely coming from the basement. Alex froze. He listened carefully. The noise came again. It was a scratching sound. Alex hesitated for a moment, but then he started to walk towards the basement stairs. He had to know what was making that noise. He slowly descended the stairs, his heart pounding in his chest. When he reached the bottom of the stairs, he stood there for a moment, listening. The scratching sound was louder now. It was coming from the door. Alex took a deep breath and walked towards the door. He placed his hand on the cold wood and felt a shiver run down his spine. He closed his eyes and took a deep breath. Then he opened his eyes and pushed against the door. The door creaked open. Alex stared into the darkness beyond the door. He couldn't see anything. He took a step forward, and then another. He was slowly making his way into the darkness, and then he heard a voice. Alex. The voice was soft and whispery. It seemed to come from all around him. Alex. Alex stopped walking. He looked around, but he couldn't see anyone. "Who's there?" he asked. But there was no answer. Just silence. Alex stood in the doorway, frozen in fear. He didn't know what to do. He wanted to turn and run, but he couldn't move. "Alex." The voice whispered again. Alex took a deep breath and stepped into the darkness. He could feel the cold air on his skin, but he couldn't see anything. He took another step, and then another. He was slowly making his way through the darkness, but he didn't know where he was going. "Alex." The voice whispered again. It was closer now. Alex could feel the presence of something behind him. He turned around, but he couldn't see anything. "What do you want?" he asked. But there was no answer. Alex started to walk again. He didn't know where he was going, but he knew that he had to keep moving. He couldn't stay in the darkness any longer. He walked for what felt like hours. He was starting to lose hope. He thought he would never find his way out. And then he saw a light. It was a faint light, but it was there. Alex walked towards the light. He got closer and closer until he could see that it was coming from a doorway. Alex stepped through the doorway and found himself in a large room. The room was empty, but it was filled with light. Alex looked around, confused. He didn't know where he was. And then he saw the door. It was the same door that he had been trying to open in the basement. But now it was open. Alex walked towards the door and looked through it. He could see a long hallway beyond. Alex hesitated for a moment. He didn't know if he should go through the door. But then he remembered the voice. "Alex." The voice whispered again. Alex took a deep breath and stepped through the door. He found himself in a long, dark hallway. The only light came from a few flickering torches on the walls. Alex started to walk down the hallway. He didn't know where he was going, but he knew that he had to follow the light. He walked for what felt like hours. The hallway seemed to go on forever. And then he saw the door. It was a large, wooden door at the end of the hallway. The door was carved with strange symbols and runes. Alex stopped in front of the door and looked at it. He felt a sense of dread, but he knew that he had to open it. He reached out and placed his hand on the doorknob. It was cold to the touch. Alex took a deep breath and turned the knob. The door creaked open. Alex stepped through the door and found himself in a large, circular room. The room was filled with mist. Alex looked around, but he couldn't see anything. "Alex." The voice whispered again. Alex turned around, but he couldn't see anyone. "Who's there?" he asked. But there was no answer. Just silence. Alex took a step forward, and then another. He was slowly making his way through the mist. He didn't know where he was going, but he knew that he had to keep moving. He couldn't stay in the mist any longer. He walked for what felt like hours. He was starting to lose hope. He thought he would never find his way out. And then he saw a light. It was a faint light, but it was there. Alex walked towards the light. He got closer and closer until he could see that it was coming from a doorway. Alex stepped through the doorway and found himself back in the basement. He was standing in front of the door that he had come through. Alex looked around, confused. He didn't know where he had been or what he had seen. But he knew one thing for sure. He never wanted to go back through that door again. Alex turned and walked away from the door. He went upstairs and went to bed. He dreamed of the door and the things that he had seen on the other side. But he knew that it was just a dream. Or was it? Alex woke up the next morning feeling refreshed and determined. He knew that he had made the right decision. Alex and Olivia's relationship slowly began to heal after their fight. They stopped talking about the door and focused on rebuilding their lives together. One day, Alex and Olivia were cleaning the basement when they found a hidden compartment behind the wall where the door had been. Inside the compartment was a dusty old book. Alex took the book upstairs and opened it. The book was filled with strange symbols and runes. Alex didn't know what the book said, but he could feel a powerful energy radiating from it. Alex showed the book to Olivia. She was just as intrigued as he was. They decided to try to translate the book. They spent weeks researching the symbols and runes. They finally managed to translate a few pages of the book. The book was a manual for opening the door to other dimensions. It contained instructions on how to perform rituals and spells. Alex and Olivia were hesitant at first, but they were also curious. They decided to try one of the rituals from the book. They gathered the necessary ingredients and performed the ritual. The ritual was long and complicated, but they managed to complete it. When the ritual was over, the door in the basement reappeared. Alex and Olivia looked at each other. They were both excited and scared. "Are you sure you want to do this?" Olivia asked. Alex nodded. "I have to know what's on the other side," he said. Alex and Olivia walked down to the basement and stood in front of the door. Alex took a deep breath and placed his hand on the doorknob. He turned the knob and the door creaked open. Alex and Olivia looked through the door. They could see a swirling vortex of light and darkness on the other side. Alex took a step forward, and then Olivia grabbed his arm. "Wait," she said. "What if it's dangerous?" Alex looked at her. "I know," he said, "but I have to go." Alex let go of Olivia's arm and stepped through the door. Olivia watched as he disappeared into the vortex of light and darkness. She waited for him to come back, but he never did. Olivia went back upstairs and sat down on the couch. She didn't know what to do. She thought about calling the police, but she didn't know what to tell them. She couldn't explain about the door or the other dimension. Olivia decided to keep Alex's disappearance a secret. She didn't want anyone to think she was crazy. She went on with her life, but she never forgot Alex. She often wondered what had happened to him and if he was still alive. One night, Olivia was dreaming about Alex. She saw him standing in the doorway of her bedroom. "Alex," she said. "Is that you?" Alex smiled. "Yes, it's me," he said. "I'm back." Olivia ran to Alex and hugged him. She was so happy to see him again. "Where have you been?" she asked. Alex smiled. "I've been to a lot of places," he said. "But I'm home now." Alex and Olivia talked for hours. He told her about all the things he had seen and done in the other dimension. Olivia was fascinated by his stories. She couldn't believe that there was a whole other world out there. "Can I go with you next time?" she asked. Alex smiled. "Maybe," he said. "But not yet." Alex kissed Olivia goodnight and then he disappeared. Olivia woke up feeling happy and fulfilled. She knew that Alex was okay, and she knew that one day she would see him again.
Thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe for more similar horror stories.